Okay, welcome everyone to the Distilled Spirits Council Ask the Experts webinar series. I'm Amy Carter. I'm the VP of Member Services and Business Development here at the Distilled Spirits Council of the United States, also known as DISCUS. Today's topic is how innovations in packaging can drive brand growth. And we've got Jason Barrett of the Strategic Sourcing Hub and Black Button Distilling here with us. And I'll introduce Jason in a second after I just get through some housekeeping. Which also allows us to make sure we get everyone into the webinar. So I want to let folks know that we are recording the webinar, so it will be available on the events page of the Discus website. It'll also be available on the Discus YouTube channel. And I want to remind everyone of the Discus antitrust policy statement, which is on the screen, but I'll also read it in case you are listening to this and not watching. We're going to all please refrain from discussing or exchanging information relating to pricing, marketing or sales plans, costs or confidential plans regarding output or production, boycotting another company, not recruiting or hiring each other's employees, or salaries, wages, or benefits, or any other competitively sensitive or proprietary business information. And so for those of you who do not know, Discus is I also want to make sure, because we're going to be talking about innovations in packaging, which goes along with marketing, we put on the screen our Code of Responsible Practices for Beverage Alcohol Advertising and Marketing. I'm not going to read that, but we also included the link to that so that when we send this recording out to everybody afterwards, you can see the code and then also click the link if you need to refer to it in the future. But for those of you, we're going to stay on this slide for a second just so you can get a chance to read it. But for those of you who aren't familiar with Discus, we're the leading voice and advocate for our members and then for the industry overall. We provide a wealth of resources and services, including this webinar, that we hope educates and shares relevant ideas, trends, resources, and opportunities with our members and also with the broader industry or folks that are interested in our industry. This whole Ask the Expert webinar series has included things from topics like building a sales process, and that was featuring the Beverage Trade Network. We also had recently a webinar on choosing distribution networks with Park Street Imports, the future of barrels with Devil's Cask, which was the 2024 Discus Innovation Award winner. We did flavor balancing with True Essence, the rise of agave spirits, small business grants for export activities, trends in the U.S. liquor market featuring Nielsen IQ, e-commerce. We did several e-commerce webinars, one with Reserve Bar, and then a DTC e-commerce with Flaviar, formerly Speakeasy. Global regulatory compliance tips from Trace One, tips for accessing capital and expertise with Pronghorn and other industry experts. And we also had a webinar earlier in the year on the alcohol buying trends of socially conscious consumers, and that was with the Women of the Vine and Spirits. All these webinars, as well as this one when we're finished, will be available at distilledspirits.org/events. And so with all that housekeeping taken care of, I want to introduce today's speaker. Jason Barrett is the president and master distiller of Black Button Distillery and the Strategic Sourcing Hub. Jason, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Amy.
Cool. So Jason and I will have a conversation for about 25, 30 minutes. We'll take questions throughout. If you have a question, use the raise your hand icon, which is at the top of your screen. It kind of looks like this. Or put your question in the chat. We'll also save some time at the end of our discussion for Q&A. And then finally, Jason's contact information will be on the last slide, and it will also be in the email that we sent to everybody afterwards with the link to this recording. And so you should feel free to contact Jason directly, or of course, Discus can always put you in touch. So with that, Jason, we'll get started. And I want to start with just sort of the softball question for people who don't know what the Strategic Sourcing Hub is. Let's just start there. How did it come to be?
Yeah, so I'm sort of uniquely suited to be discussing this topic. Before becoming a distiller, I actually sold cardboard packaging along the East Coast for a company that did displays and lots of industrial packaging. I then went and got most of an accounting degree from George Washington University and ultimately started Black Button Distilling here in Rochester, New York. Black Button Distilling is a grain to glass New York craft distillery that operates its own farm, grows the grains, all the way through sale. Rochester is an old industrial city, so land is cheap and houses are cheap, which means generally lower cost of living. And as an outgrowth of that, we started being approached by folks to do co-packing for them. So folks that have a brand in mind, but maybe don't have a facility of their own. In 2020, that was large enough that we decided to make it its own team. So the Strategic Sourcing Hub by Black Button Distilling is managed by a great team of 5 project managers. They're working directly with our co-packing clients, ordering supplies, booking time in our 70,000 square foot production facility. We've got 4 bottling lines. We do import and export of bulk spirits as well. And really the goal of the Strategic Sourcing Hub is to help bring clients beverage ideas to reality. And it's been a really wonderful journey these last 4 years, and is always an exciting thing to work on.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love the idea of the company and your background, which we can get into in a bit. But let's dive into the topic at hand, so the
Yeah.
innovation. And of course, there's a wide range of people that consume alcohol, from your 21 plus to your, whoever else at the other end of the spectrum. So how do you get a consumer to pick up your bottle?
So, there's sort of an old adage I've always heard, which is that the packaging sells the first bottle and the quality of the juice sells the rest of those bottles. And I think that is something that, as we are dealing with these turbulent times, that new brands and even brands that want to really stand out really want to look at. And there's multiple ways that we're going to be discussing over these next few slides to really be different. Vodka is always an interesting one to me. By definition, odorless, colorless, tasteless. So when I walk into a liquor store and there are 700 vodkas, how do you convince a consumer that yours is different? How do you get them to pick up that bottle? Certainly, if one is cost, if you're the cheapest vodka at that store, there are consumers that want that. There are also folks that have built a brand. Take Grey Goose or Tito's that have spent many millions of dollars convincing people that those products are right for them. Tito's, vodka for dog lovers. If you love dogs, you should drink Tito's. Grey Goose, is very high end and has spent a lot of money, again, encouraging consumers that if they want to drink the best, to drink Grey Goose. Kettle One equally has spent a lot of money to tell people why theirs is the best. And there's even a joke in New York City that the investment bankers drink Grey Goose and the Wall Street guys drink Kettle One. I don't have any empirical data on that, but these brands have spent a lot of money to convince people that this is the image that they want to give off. But if you don't have millions of dollars and you don't have the scale to be the cheapest, another opportunity to set yourself apart is unique packaging. So, Crystal Skull Vodka being one of the probably original examples. And truly, I know very few college students or people I talked to about their days in college that did not at some point acquire this bottle. Also, most of them then tell me they refilled that bottle many times with other less expensive product. But, are you really selling the vodka inside? Or are you selling this decanter? And if the custom glass is only an extra 50 cents and you can sell someone, a $2 piece of custom glass for $20 because you put a few dollars worth of vodka in it, that's a very interesting business case. As well as, to your point, Amy, can you get the consumer to pick it up off the shelf? If the consumer grabs that bottle and reads the back of it, you've got about a 50-50 chance they're going to put it in their cart. But how many great products with great stories do the consumers just walk on by because there isn't a reason for them to pick it up?
Mm.
And again, I would encourage folks, there's nothing wrong with a traditional glass bottle, beautifully designed label. That is a packaging route in and of itself. But are there alternative ways? And you're going to notice a lot of what we're discussing today are just questions, thought provoking, trying to get people to look at new alternatives. Are there different ways to get that consumer to to pick up that bottle? And to try to also again spur some ideas. It's not just Crystal Skull vodka. We advance to the next slide. We'll even see that there are different takes on this. Here's a brand with some great rum, Pumpkin Face Rum.
Oh,
As far as I know, they do not have a pumpkin flavored rum. They do have a couple of different versions, but the name of the brand and the packaging go hand in hand. Now, also what's interesting is you define yourself with a brand like this. Don't get me wrong, people could drink pumpkin face rum year round. And I'm sure there are people that do. But I think we can all agree that this product is going to be of particular interest in October, tailing into November a little bit with Thanksgiving. So if I was running this brand, I would have the whole year to put together programming around the end of September and early October. I'd be able to focus my distributor on this. I'd be able to get stores excited to put this out for 1 month out of the year. And if you then combined that with a spring one, you'd probably stay pretty busy, flipping back and forth between your two main brands. The other thing that I think is important for folks to point out, these guys stand out from the crowd while also making it easy to manufacture. If you see that puck at the bottom, this bottle is going to go through a bottling line quite nicely. It's going to work on traditional bottling equipment without, I mean, obviously some amount of adjustment to take care of that width. But this didn't totally revolutionize the production process, but did totally revolutionize where it stands on the shelf.
I have a
Yes,
question.
Amy.
So you mentioned that this particular bottle, the pumpkin face, would not disrupt the sort of production line. What about the crystal skull? What about the skull? Is that similar or because I would have actually thought
So,
that for Thanksgiving or for Halloween also for October.
so if we were to scroll back to that slide real quick, that's a great question, Amy. Again, they're not a client of mine. I don't have any insider knowledge, but I can tell you how we would run this bottle in my plant. So given the unique shape, given the fact that the cork is at a kind of slanted angle, there's really only two ways you can do this. One is either by hand filling them with a hand filler and manually corking them. So that's a lot of labor. And if the volumes aren't that high, that would be an acceptable way to do it. The other option is basically to build a puck or a carrying case, something that would orient that skull so that the bottle neck was straight up and down and would allow it to then ride on the conveyors and basically be available from 300 and all 360 degrees. So, and it is very likely that the Crystal Skull vodka has done both. Because when you're small, you do a lot of it with handwork so that you don't have to invest in the equipment. Once you have the scale, having custom built equipment made so that these bottles can be placed onto small carrying carriages, rotate through the filling and corking process, get sealed and come off the line is very cost effective once you reach scale. But either way, this is going to be a more expensive product to get into from a manufacturing and filling side rather than the pumpkin face one we were just looking at.
Thank you.
Yeah. So guys, if we want to roll forward two more. Yep, so one more after this. One other thing that sorry.
Okay.
Back. back to the Cannonball one. One of the thing that I think is interesting is that packaging can also lend itself to really neat line extensions. So Captain Morgan, had started out with one flavor, wanted to have rum, that looked like a cannonball. Again, stands out on a shelf, easy for somebody to grab, probably easy for somebody to pour. Just a bottle that fits good in the hand, fits well in the hand. Well, once the original took off, well, what else looks like a cannonball? A coconut, a a pumpkin of their own right, and and they've even done several other versions, but I couldn't find good pictures of it. But this is an example where it's still a bottle. It's still going to fill very easily on bottling lines. They're just screen printing it in different ways. And I'm sure, again, almost anything that's round could lend itself to this with just a different shrink wrap. So do they want an apple flavored rum, an orange flavored rum, any other round fruit, basically? As well as any opportunity to just engage with their consumers in a fun and interesting way. I would be willing to bet they don't sell a ton of the coconut in October, and they probably don't sell a ton of the spiced pumpkin shot rum in May. But by having nationwide distribution, by having stuff that's seasonally appropriate, by having a new reason for both the distributor partner and the retail partner to focus on this. It's incumbent on us, the manufacturers, to be thinking 6 months ahead. If you were to tell me that you want to get a promo out for Christmas, it is far too late. Even Valentine's Day has probably come to pass. But there's still time here in December to plan out a Mother's Day or Father's Day or Labor Day push with unique packaging so that you can get it manufactured, get it through distribution, and have it be timely to that consumer when they're thinking about it. And there's just a lot of cool opportunities to do that.
Yeah, Jason, I want to get back since no one's asked this question.
Yeah.
You've mentioned programming, and since you went back, since you just started saying how, it's too late now for basically the Christmas season. Although I would actually do like bottle shaped as Christmas ornaments.
Yep.
I'm that type of person. I'd put that on my table for a Christmas party. But anyway, so when you mentioned earlier programming, and now you just said that, start thinking now about Mother's Day, Father's Day. What do you mean by programming?
Yeah. So typically the way we run our branded side of the business, we're going to meet with our distribution partners across late December, but really early January. And at that point, we're going to lay out our annual business plan, and it's a negotiation with that distribution partner, but it's what we want to see happen over the course of the next 12 months. What are some of the volume goals we're going to shoot for, and how are we going to approach this? Because if I just go to them in January with all 12 ideas, let's do all of these right now, it's going to be hard to get their attention. But if we were, let's just use the three that we have in front of us as examples. I would say that these are probably each seasonally focused. So our Cannon Blast might very well be the spring focus. We're going to have displays. We're going to go after consumers as they're getting ready to go outside. We're going to, on a boat, at the beach, at a springtime get together. Here's all the reasons that consumers should focus on Cannon Blast. And we want the distributor to focus on that March, April, and May. But once we've gotten that seasonal push, we want the distributor to focus on us again. And so we then said that Captain Morgan Loco Nut was our summer plan. And therefore for June, July, and August, again, great on a beach. Here's the cocktail you can make with it. We're going to do some giveaways. Maybe we're going to do some consumer rebate mail-ins during June, July, and August. And therefore, we want the distributor to focus their attention there. And then obviously for September, October, and a tail bit into November, we're going to go with our Jacko Blast, Jack-o'-lanterns, very fall themed. By separating these three products out into their various quarters, getting the distributor focused, telling them what we're going to pay for points of distribution, how our sales team is going to help support them, what the marketing and packaging is going to look like,
Yeah.
we can focus that distributor in these 90-day sprints or 60-day sprints.
Got it.
That is much more likely to lead to points of distribution, activation, and consumer success with each of these, rather than if we simply said, guys, here's our 3 ideas for the year for all 12 months, go. Because obviously in May, the Jacko Blast one's probably not that seasonally appropriate. And even in the winter, at least here in the Northeast, coconut's not exactly the December thing we think of. And as you pointed out, Amy, and if anyone from Captain Morgan is on the call, they're welcome to run with this. There's no reason you couldn't have a beautiful set of cannonball shaped Christmas tree ornaments for December of 2025. That this same packaging with just slight tweaks. I mean, again, if we look at these products, they're all based on Caribbean rum. They're all based on Captain Morgan's branding, and they're all based in the same bottle shape, just different decorations. They could, again, extend that to Christmas tree ornaments easily. Could they do an Easter egg one?
Oh.
Maybe. These are the things where you employ a branding agency and somebody far smarter than me to come up with, how do we take this same concept and just tweak it a little so that we don't have to totally reinvent the wheel.
So I know you have some packaging for occasions, but I do want to ask also, so when you go talk to your distributor, do you already have, or should you already have the packaging solution in mind or already created?
Yeah, so normally, you in a perfect world, you have one distributor that you have a great relationship with and can sort of be developing products in conjunction with them. And what I mean by that is you don't want to develop something, take it to your client and have your client say, that's awful, I would never do that. Ooh. But, we have 12 distribution partners. We have one that we've got a great relationship with and we bounce that feedback off of. Again, we're 6 months to a year ahead talking to them about ideas. But for the other 11, where we don't have as strong of a relationship and where we don't get as much of their time and attention, you really want to have a tangible product in hand to show them. At a minimum, a digital copy of what you want it to look like and a flask of what it's going to taste like. But, distributors, like most humans, are very tactile. If you say, I have an idea for a Christmas ornament bourbon, okay, that's interesting. Let me know what that looks like. You get no share of mine. But if you can show them the packaging, if you can have them taste it, you can now have real dialogue about what this should look like, and it makes it much more real. You also don't generally have to run, if your goal is to sell 1,000 cases of this, you do not have to make all 1,000 cases before getting your distributors on board. In fact, I would highly recommend that you either in your own manufacturing site or working with your co-packer, you produce a test batch, which might only be 2 cases. And those might be very expensive. But the goal is that you're going to take, 1 to each distributor and 1 to each key retail partner and get them to hopefully pre-order or pre-agree to what their commitment's going to be. Because if you're going to make 1,000 cases and none of your distributors want more than 20 cases, you've got a problem. Or what if you've hit on this great idea and each distributor wants 1,000 cases of it? You don't want to have then made only 1,000 that you have to ration out. So making that test case, making the, and again, distributors and retailers, they're tactile and and the picture's worth 1,000 words, but they're willing to be flexible. If you've got a digital mock-up and a plain flask of this is what it's likely to taste like, most people can add those two things together. Is it even better if you can do it in a sample bottle of this is the exact thing? Of course. But even if that sample bottle is empty or not, 99% of the way there, not 100, okay, it's labeled, the final version will be screen printed. Most people can accept small tweaks, but you want to make those hurdles pretty small to get over. Because the more you require people to imagine things, the more difficult it is. You have to remember that both the distributors and the retailers are inundated with new product ideas on an almost daily basis. If everybody else is coming to them with working samples and you're coming to them with a concept, they're probably going to spend their time and attention with folks that are further along. So it's all a balancing act.
Okay, cool. All right, so now I know you've got some insights on just packaging around specific occasions.
Yeah. So we want to roll forward one more. So one of the folks that I think has done a really great job of this is the fine team behind Fireball. You'll note that it's the same product inside in all of these, but they're finding unique ways to present this through packaging to consumers. So on the far right, we've got their 50 mLs just in a bucket. Now, part of this drives the fact that the consumer is now likely to buy 20 when without the bucket, they might have only bought 12. They might have only bought 10. But by literally laying out on the side, buy, add ice, and then have your party, they're making it very easy. If the consumer's on their way to an event, if they're on their way to go on their friend's boat or to go to the beach or to go to a backyard barbecue, do they want to show up with a handful of weird stuff or this thing that literally they can pop the top off, pour the ice in, and they're ready to go? The other great benefit of this packaging is staying power. And you see that on all three across the top. It's not just that it made it more attractive at the initial sale, but there's a pretty good chance that that bucket ends up in the back of the garage, in the corner of the boat. And now you're forever getting that branding in the corner of the consumer's mind. The same with the one in the center here. It's simply a bottle of Fireball, but then with it added a few cheap items to make it ready to go. So if you were either going to give this as a gift, or again, you're headed camping for the weekend, this has everything you need to be able to participate in a drinking game responsibly, hopefully. But 2 ping pongs and a couple of solo cups added what, $1, maybe $2 at scale, probably $2 to the cost of this package. They not only now get 2 facings in the liquor store, but they have a reason why consumers would pick this bottle up over a different bottle of cinnamon whiskey. And potentially those cups that are branded have staying power and continue to get reused by that consumer in this occasion. Another one I find very interesting is the 5.25 liter keg. And you would say, Jason, I'm a steward of the TTB regulations, and 5.25 liters is not a legal size. This must be illegal. Well, since it's being sold in 25 states right now, I assure you that the fine folks at Fireball are not breaking the law. If we had this in front of us, what we would notice is that this Fireball keg has a tap on 3 sides. Because what is a legal size is 1.75. And 1.75 times 3 is 5.25. So this keg is really just a dispensing device. And the items inside are just really traditional bag in box, like every Franzia and Boda box wine you've seen. But with Fireball now placed in this metal container, with it being quite large on the shelf, with it being something that few folks have seen. I mean, it stands out quite interestingly. They have managed to take their same base liquid and make it attractive to another set of customers. And it's worth pointing out that because our industry has to, that we as producers and brand owners have to market to distributors, retailers, and consumers, it's not always just even a consumer play that you're looking for. By being a larger partner for their distributor, Fireball gets more attention and more sales. And by taking up another 12 inches of space with that retailer. I mean, that keg pretty much takes out two other bottles of whiskey. They're denying space. By their keg being in that spot, they're denying space to two competitors. And they're getting the retailer to invest more of their money and be more focused on that Fireball turning faster and faster. There is a liquor store in a small town here outside of Rochester, New York. And when you stand at their register, you can touch. So this is not even store wide. This is in like a 10 square foot area. No less than 40 different types of Fireball packaging.
Wow.
From the ones we have on this screen. I mean, even again, the one below us, the one at the bottom here, it is just a box of 50 mLs. They've just repackaged their traditional packaging, but now it's a party yard. If you were headed to a football game, if you were headed to something, rather than picking up a whole mess of minis, rather than even picking up the bucket, you can now grab the party yard. And and I guarantee you those are hand packed. But it's the same 50 mLs coming off the same bottling lines, just being showcased in a different way. And what's ironic, that store I was just talking about has both the party bucket and the party yard right next to each other, because it's just a different way to sell Fireball that might speak to a slightly different consumer, that again ties up that retailer's money and gets that share of mind. If you're headed to a football game, take the party yard. It's pretty clever ways to repackage existing items in unique outer packaging to gain more sales.
For sure. We have, I think we probably should move around a little bit more quickly because we've got, you got like 5 or so more slides to go. So
Yeah.
you got some more display options.
Yeah, if we want to
Holiday
fly
theme.
if we want to pop to the next screen, the irony, and we don't have to spend long on this, it's again Fireball taking those same 50 mLs, either hanging those party buckets on a display, putting them in candy canes, wrapping them in a 10-pack that's spring loaded, so there's always a set coming up. Packaging allows so many unique ways to display your products without having to constantly innovate different flavors, without having to constantly innovate. You still have the opportunity to have distinct reasons. Again, I am sure the party yard is promoted during football season, the candy canes here during the fourth quarter. It gives them it gives the distributor specific reasons to be able to sell in specific items all year round, keeping this brand top of mind for consumers, retailers, and distributors, and they just do a fantastic job. So you can hop onto the next screen as well if you like. So another example of a brand where packaging has been truly impactful is BuzzBall. And obviously, I think most folks know they were recently acquired by Beam. Here's a family-oriented company, family-founded company that actually had design equipment to manufacture this particular package. They've got a couple dozen flavors, but what really makes BuzzBall stand out, it's kind of the original canned cocktail, but at 200 mLs, it's much more approachable, and at $2.99 to $3.99, and bright, vibrant colors, it's easy for folks to try it. The first time I think I ever was involved with this brand, I think was before I was even in this industry. I was on a boat, got a cooler, a bunch of beers iced down, and one of the young ladies with us brought a smattering of these, threw them in the cooler, and throughout the day was able to enjoy cocktails ready to go, whereas the rest of us were drinking beer. So whereas the standard 12-ounce can has certainly become the predominant item in RTDs, 355 milliliters is a lot for most cocktails. I certainly wouldn't feel comfortable serving it to consumers. Imagine an old fashioned or something very heavy, high alcohol. It's just too much. These are 200 mLs. How again are they able to, meet the consumer where the consumer wants, build an entire brand around it? What most people don't necessarily know is that the company behind BuzzBall actually has about a dozen brands, plenty in normal bottles, but this makes up the vast majority of their sales. And what's also interesting, in their later years, they added the bigger balls, which is a 1.75. And certainly, again, a cute look, same flavors, very easy to execute, and certainly, again, gets them more shelf space, but so it's the exact same juice, but represents a very, very small amount of their sales compared to the accessible flavor, or the accessible packaging of the Pop Top 200 mLs. So to me, that says it's not, here's the same company selling the same liquid in just two different packaging formats, but consumers are distinctly telling us how they want to receive this item. And my hat's off to the whole team at BuzzBall for building one of the great companies of our industry these last 10 years by really recognizing what packaging and display can do for consumers. So what is the next BuzzBall? What your company could do? What's the unmet need that consumers want that you can solve? These are the questions we're discussing with our clients to try to help them, again, be at that cutting edge.
Yeah, Sazerac got a good one when they bought BuzzBalls, and I'm glad you brought them up because I was going to ask the question about RTDs and canned cocktails, and this sort of pre-answers my question. So thank you. But so now, how do you make a bottle or something stand out on a shelf? How can packaging help with that? And then I'll get
Like
to the question.
for RTDs?
Yeah, no, I think it's just in general. I think we can go to the next slide.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
wait,
So
I'm sorry. Someone actually does have a question related, I
yeah.
think, probably to the earlier side. It was in the Q&A. Hi, Jason. As an old box guy, what do you tell your clients about the shipper box? Are graphics on the case important?
Yes. So
This person who asked that question could answer probably themselves too.
I was gonna say it sounds like somebody that must know me a little bit. So the interesting part about custom corrugated is that printing black ink on a brown box is almost free. So most folks in our industry probably don't know that. But basically, whenever a box factory is printing custom colors, there's always ink left in the pans on the machines. All that ink gets collected, gets mixed with carbon black, and becomes black ink because they have to print the stamp on the bottom of every box explaining what the box is. So there's already going to be black ink in the pan. So putting a larger print cylinder on there, once you buy that print plate, the actual ink part is pretty free. My point to any brand is that you want to set up your distributor and your consumer for as much success as possible. You want to be able to display it well if you're able to get floor stacks. If a consumer does go home with a box, you want it to look, positive and aligned with your brand. And you just want to make it easier for both the retailer and the distributor to notice your boxes in the back room. If they're staring at a sea of just plain brown boxes and yours stands out and they've got a space on their shelf to fill, the natural human tendency is to go to the item that stands out. So if you're buying your glass in bulk or you're developing custom packaging, getting your boxes custom custom printed is a great way to cheaply make your brand stand out in a bigger way. Generally, if your product is coming in boxes already, it's not necessarily cost effective to rebottle it in a new box. But again, some brands do choose to do that. So
Okay,
just again, something people want to give some thought to as they're designing the packaging.
great. All right, so let's move on.
So the slide we're on right now, oh, sorry if we go back
Back
real
one.
quick. The slide we're on right now shows the opportunity if some of the things we've shown so far are too far avant-garde.
Well, and also from places that have like big budgets.
Yes, they've tended
Yeah.
to be ones that had larger budgets. Although there's ways to approach most of these with smaller budgets. And again, having a co-packer or a partner that has been through this can help you with that. And so it's interesting. This one here, you can do a single pallet at a time. You do like this does not require large commitments. This is a new item out of OI glass. We get ours through Tricor Bron. And this bottle can come at one pallet. Prices do get better at one trailer, but you can custom print 360 degrees all around it. It fills and seals just like a normal bottle with an ROPP top. And this distinctly stands out on a shelf in a very different way. So the question, they've got a few folks in Colorado that have started to do it. This example brand of rum that they have in front of them, there's nothing else like this on a shelf. And if I was starting a brand new brand or a brand new line extension, this is something to seriously look at because the cost is almost equal to glass, but it's distinctly different. If any part of your story is about sustainability and the concern about how energy intensive glass is, this packaging can help tell that story. And since it's one of the only ones like it, when you walk into that distributor, when you walk into that retailer, when you're there with that consumer, if I'm standing at the shelf set of rum, and this thing with vibrant colors and 360 packaging, 360 printing looks different than all the other ones, that's a good chance I might pick that up. Now, the only thing I would tell a brand that was getting ready to bring this on, if your intention is to have a large amount of on-premise, if you're going to go after a lot of bars and restaurants, this paper packaging is probably not going to go over super well.
Right.
The reason I say that is because in a well that's wet, bartenders are probably going to be risk averse. So again, even as a brand, if you wanted this to be your 750 and you did a liter equivalent out of actual standard glass, hopefully lightweight or recycled glass, you could get all the off-premise benefits of standing out on the shelf through the paper bottle and still satisfy your on-premise clients by having something a little more reserved. So it's why you have to have a whole strategy thought out, but you don't have to get super crazy. There are things not that different than traditional bottles, still with the ability to have packaging make you stand out.
So Jason, we only have a couple more minutes left. So let's
Yes,
move
sir.
through the next couple slides quickly. I know you've got one that specifically focuses on not glass. So what do you do
Yes.
if you can't take glass with you somewhere?
Yes.
The next slide, right?
Yes, we can go on to that one as well. So, this is another just set of examples of folks who have really leaned into alternative packaging. Takes a while to source, but really makes the brand different. I mean, again, Engine Gin is rising up the charts, doing great volume. I mean, it's gin in an engine oil can. And yet, in a gin section, think of how different that looks. And think of all the places, again, that you can't take glass. So if you wanted gin and tonics on a beach, here's a great way to be pouring that. Or poolside. We can hop to the next one as well. Another just great example of brands that have really leaned into it. Neft Vodka being right in their custom oil drums. And then the one on the right, sorry, the one on the left is actually an item out of beer packaging, but it would be available for any RTDs. Most RTDs right now are the traditional can top. That's not how consumers enjoy cocktails in a bar. A full pry-off top, which usually runs across any same canning equipment, allows for that full olfactory experience where you can really smell that cocktail. So if there are brands that have an RTD where the aroma is really important to that customer experience, again, this is a way to really stand out and have consumers have a better experience with your brand. And those tops are readily available at this point at the same price point as most other tops. So you don't have to break the bank or reinvent the wheel to have packaging help you stand out.
I haven't seen those before. But so what about, packaging and the consumer experience? So as sort of the last sort of wrap up there.
Yeah, if we hop to our last slide real quick. So again, this is an example of OI Glass and FX Matte, a Saranac Brewing Company that also now does RTDs. This is a glass bottle with a full pull-off top. So again, one of the challenges for RTDs, a traditional 12-ounce aluminum can has to be carbonated. That is the only way that it'll have the structural rigidity to retain its ability to move forward. So what happens if you have a cocktail that isn't carbonated? I mean, again, an old fashioned is not carbonated. Neither is a Manhattan or a margarita traditionally. Here's an example of where the glass not only will stand out distinctly, but the consumer can now enjoy a non-carbonated cocktail in a single serve package, ready to be served again, much closer to how they do it in a cocktail bar, where the whole aroma will be able to lift out. And that can really shape how those consumers can go forward. And again, being glass, not going to be able to go on a beach with it. So you'd want to be careful. I don't know that I would use this package to do daiquiris and other rum-based cocktails that have more of a beach association. But there's so many different opportunities. It depends on what the client is trying to accomplish.
Excellent. Okay, cool. This is super helpful, Jason. I learned a lot. And it's funny, the cans with the open lid.
Yep.
I hadn't seen those before or even known about that, or it didn't even occur to me like why you would use that. And I like this bottle idea too for pre-made cocktails. I do want to see if anyone else has any other questions. I don't see anything else in the chat or in the Q&A, but if you want to raise your hand, if you have a last question you want to get out there, and while you're looking for that button, I'll just ask, this is kind of a sort of a plug for Discus, but Jason, you've got a really cool background, very diverse. You worked on Capitol Hill. I didn't realize you went to, you said GW?
Yeah, I have most
Right
of
down
an
here?
MBA in finance from George Washington University. I
Oh,
dropped out to start my distillery.
okay, so it worked out for you. So what's your sort of point of view on getting involved in advocacy? We know there's a lot of changes that may or may not be coming down the pike in 2025 around a bunch of different issues. But from your take, from having worked on Capitol Hill, now you're in this industry, what's your take on getting involved in advocacy?
So my opinion is that if you want something to change, you have to make active strides to doing that. And if you aren't willing to make some of those active strides, you shouldn't complain how it works out. American politics goes to those who show up. And Discus has been a great partner for our whole industry and Black Button specifically. And I think folks would be surprised at both how helpful Discus can be in arranging that advocacy and the fact that you don't have to have millions of dollars to make a difference. A lot of it is, especially local politicians. So your local senators, your local assemblymen, a lot of them are not educated on the issues facing our industry. And so even if you don't have money, if you're like, hey, Jason, I'm not going to be able to donate to their campaigns, that's not really what's required. Time is actually probably more important. And so what I mean by that is getting that state senator to come and visit your distillery, to understand that local jobs in your community are impacted by this issue or that issue, by just having a phone call with their senior staff to explain how this issue impacts your local business. If we're not doing that, these politicians are making their decisions unaware. And Discus can help you coordinate what that message should be and what the suggested way of doing that is. But they're an advocacy group. They can be your quarterback, but they need each of us to be that defensive line, because my local politicians want to hear about things that impact people in our community. They are open to taking a meeting with Discus, being along for the ride, but they always then, okay, Jason, how does this impact your Rochester distillery or the 100+ distilleries across the state? So if there are things happening in American politics that will negatively impact your business, that you fear may negatively impact your business, or that there are opportunities to do it better, it doesn't always have to be a negative thing. If you've got, if there are specific things you'd like to see changed, advocating as a group is usually the most effective way to do it. And I strongly encourage folks to talk to Discus. We've been a member probably the better part of a decade. Every time I've called, I have found it to be very worthwhile and useful, and they've helped us navigate numerous issues through our growth plan.
Jason, thank you. I mean, you couldn't have said it better. We did not plan this ahead of time. I was just going to ask you that question generally, but I want to really thank you for saying so many nice things about Discus, and particularly our colleagues that work on the government relations side of things. I do want to tell everyone before we let you off the phone. This webinar wraps up our 2024 season. We'll pick up again in January, and we'll also be launching some member-only webinars. On the member-only side of things, one of the things that Jason said in terms of the way Discus can help, members can actually ask Discus to help them set up a visit to your distillery or to your operations from your member of Congress. So that's something that we offer as part of the membership. And then also for anybody in the industry, we've got a conference March 26th through 28th, 2025 here in Washington, D.C. You can go to distilledspirits.org/events or email membership@distilledspirits.org to learn about either one of those. But the thing about the conference is that there's a conference with your traditional very helpful sessions. I know this because I'm organizing one of the sessions on future strategic planning, but there's also a trade show. And this time, because we're in DC, we're doing what we call fly-in. And so it's optional. And if folks want to visit select key sort of members of Congress, that's representatives and senators on the Hill, they'll be able to do so. We'll pull a group of folks who are interested in going to talk to members of Congress, give you some sort of here's how things usually work if you haven't done a congressional office visit before. And to Jason's point, they want to hear from people who are actually on the ground locally in their districts and their states or what have you. And Discus is sort of the convening body around that. So if you do have an interest in that, the conference is open to anybody. You don't have to be a Discus member to come to the conference and or participate in the congressional visits or the fly-in during the conference. But so I just wanted to highlight that since Jason mentioned that. And also, you've mentioned a number of different sort of, products and services. There are a lot of Discus members. We have partner members who are not distilleries or not producers or suppliers, but they're sort of up and down the supply chain. They make glass, they make packaging, they have marketing solutions and whatnot. So if you're interested in learning about, or you have questions or have a need, feel free to email membership@distilledspirits.org, and we'll be happy to connect you with Jason, one of our craft members, or one of our partner members on anything that you need. So there's that. And so also, Jason, and I really thank you for doing this as well. As we head into the holiday season, I just want to plug responsibility.org. Several Discus board members stood that organization up about 30 years ago, and its focus is to eliminate drunk driving, to eliminate underage drinking, and to empower adults to drink responsibly. And so particularly during this holiday season, I want to encourage everyone, throughout the year, but particularly in this holiday season to check out responsibility.org. There's some really great practical tips on ways to talk to your teens or your young adults or your colleagues on ways to not drink if you're underage, but also ways to celebrate responsibility. So check that out for programming for schools and for companies alike. And there's also a lot of alcohol related statistics. So just to plug that as well. Jason, I want to thank you again so much for being here with us today, for sharing all your great insights, for being a member, and then for plugging Discus. We didn't pay you to do that, but thank you very much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. And then I want for everyone, please enjoy the holidays responsibly. Cheers. We'll see you in 2025. So you all may disconnect.